Hello everybody, welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to be taking you through adding and setting up of your own registers on the Polar Cloud. So this is to be used for all devices or all systems that are not currently supported on the Polar Cloud. We've actually built the framework and everything you need to map those registers yourself and bring on anything you would like that has Modbus RS485 into the Polar Cloud. Okay, so this includes obviously non-supported power meters or non-supported devices, as well as like your PLCs or certain devices that are one-off type applications. Okay, so to begin, we're going to obviously add our new gateway. I've already added a gateway on the system, so I'm going to head through to that now. I'm going to search for that gateway, and we can see here's my new unit that I'm going to play around on. I'm going to click on setup. This will take me through the standard setup procedures. We all know that from previous videos. I've added my license and I'm going to click next to the point where I want to add my new device that I'm going to bring online. Okay, so start off with, we are going to add what we call the generic Modbus device type. So that can be searched in the drop down menu here. I've already connected my PLC to the slave ID 1, and I'm going to give it a name here, which I'm going to call PLC mapping demo. Okay, I'm going to link that device, and we'll see now that that should load and add, and we can see that our system's online, my license is looking fine, and everything's on its way. Okay, next step, we're going to click on this over here, and that's going to load a new page and take me through to my actual generic Modbus device. Okay, what we have here is that we have pre-mapped a whole bunch of registers just to show you what it looks like. All right, and if you click on the enable edit mode, that'll then show you all the available registers, obviously up to 32. Polar Monitoring standard license fee supports up to 32 different tiles, and you'll be able to go through now and edit each of these tiles and change what you want to change. All right, so I've actually already done and prepared a list of registers that I'd like to use here. So this is coming from my PLC. I've now mapped these certain registers into D words, and they are now ready to bring over to the cloud. And this can be any device or any sensor. Maybe they've already got a Modbus registers list that you're wanting to just add a few, or say you're mapping your own PLC, you'll map across registers that are available on the Modbus. You can then assign them through on the Polar system. Okay, so we're going to take, for interest's sake, we're going to just look at these. I've labeled them as a name that I'm going to give them. I'm going to change, obviously we're going to choose the Modbus enum type. We're going to see now we've got a decimal and a hexadecimal reading here. So we're going to go through that. And then I've written here, is it readable or is it read and writable on the system? So say that if you've got outputs or something like that that you want to add. And then the last two here, I've got how many decimal points I want to show, and obviously what the unit is that I'm going to change or make on the Polar Cloud dashboard there as well. Okay, so to start off, we're going to go to supply voltage. We can see this is an unsigned 16-bit. It's D word 8, but that decimal value is now also 8. So I'm going to jump back into my Polar Cloud. Right, so we've obviously clicked on the enable edit mode, and I'm going to choose just register 1 here. It doesn't matter, you can take any of these readings here. I'm going to click on edit. Right, this is going to open up all the information I need in order to obviously map this onto the Polar Cloud. So starting off with, I want to give it a name. So we're just going to really just copy the information across here. I'm going to call this supply voltage. All right, I'm going to give it a group name. So what these group names do is that they will group the different tiles together, and this will also then group those specific pieces of information onto the cloud as well. So I'm just going to make this a diagnostics group. Okay, and now if I wanted to say pull in diagnostic information from my PLC directly, I'm going to make just a diagnostics group that I can see all that information. All right, I'm then going to obviously add the units and decimals and that side of it. So the unit, I want to obviously make this voltage DC. Okay, and this unit is actually just a text unit, and you'll see it'll just display here where this register 1, you'll see that unit there. That'll change the unit to show now voltage DC. Alright, then what we get to choose next is a cool little icon picker. So I'm going to just say search. You can go through this whole list here and search for what you want, but I'm just going to look for, say, a lightning bolt for interest's sake, just to see a nice little icon. Right, so this multiplier is the next part. So if I know this is obviously a 12 volt device now, or a 12 to 24 volt device. I don't know what the multiplier is yet, but if for interest's sake I get back a reading saying 240 volts, I then know I need to reduce that by 0.1 times, and I'll then change this to 0.1 to then lower that voltage. So when it's showing me 240 volts, it'll show me then 24.0 volts. So I'm just going to leave that as a multiplier of 1 for now, just to obviously see what we're dealing with there. The next one is obviously precision. So this is how many decimal points we're showing on the system. Right, so if I want to do 24.00 volts, I'll put in a precision now of 2. Okay. The data rate is how often the system is going to poll this value. So now I'm going to set that to 5 because I want to obviously poll the reading quite quick. 5 is the minimum, and then obviously what we try and do is that if you're reading a value, you want to always read 2 readings for every historical point that you're plotting. So if you're planning on seeing the data as an hourly reading, you'll then set this data rate to 30 minutes so that you get 2 data points in that range that you want to see, just to make sure you have more than 1 data point for consistency. Okay, next we're going to just leave it on read from device. And now where you're actually mapping your Modbus register itself, we're going to do that in this section over here. So back to my supply voltage, I can see this is decimal reading 8. So Polar Cloud uses decimal readings, right? So if any of the devices you're mapping are in hexadecimal, you need to obviously convert that to decimal on the other side. Okay, I've done that conversion on my spreadsheet here, but obviously you don't. You might not have done that already, so you can actually use your calculator to do that. I'll show you that in a few seconds as well. So we're going to do supply voltage now, and I'm just going to select what register it is. Right, so we're on register 8. I'm going to put that in here. I know that from my device, we're reading obviously holding registers, which is generally your standard. But depending on what system you're using or what program you've done on your PLC, you can choose to read a coil, read an input, or a holding register, or an input register as well. Okay, but the most common generally is 0x3. Okay. Then lastly, we're going to choose our data type, and this is our Modbus enum data type, and we can see I'm using a 16-bit unsigned, so I'm going to choose 16-bit unsigned from the list here as well. Right, we obviously support a whole different variation of Modbus enum types, and you'll just select the same one that you're obviously reading on the other side. All right. Finally, we're going to just talk quickly about the bit mask position. So if you have chosen a Boolean value, you can actually choose which bit mask position that Boolean is coming out of. And then we're going to choose, is this differential or not? So differential is for values that are permanently climbing, like say a total power consumption is obviously a value that's permanently going up. So we would tick that for that kind of reading, and you'll see it'll then show a nice histogram rather than a graph that's just permanently going up. Okay. Then second last to that, we're going to look at the live and history, or the visibility of the system. So I can choose if it must only show on the live page, if it must also poll historically, or if it must only poll historically. So that's pretty much what this is about. And then the last part here is the data validation. So this is where you can exclude certain data points if they go above or below a certain range, or for interest's sake, if you're reading null values and you don't want to display the null values. Sometimes we see that devices' null values are the maximum reading that, say, a 32-bit integer can display. So we say, cool, we'll exclude that 32-bit integer as a null value on the system. So that'll just show a no value rather than a massive, obviously a maximum value for that, and distort our graphs. Okay, so that's pretty much that. So we've set up all of our values here. I'm reading Modbus register 8. It's an unsigned 16-bit, and I'm going to click save, and this will then update that, and we can see, cool, I've got supply voltage now. All right. We're going to repeat this now for our next steps. So I'm going to do my temperature input here now. I've got another, again, 16-bit signed this time because I wanted to obviously read negatives. So I'm just going to click on this next one. Let's do register 10. I'm going to say temperature, let's say probe 1. And this time I actually want both my temperatures to be in the same group. So I'm going to actually name them groups of temps. I'm going to enable this tile. I know my units here is going to be degrees C. And I know that the command code Alt248 gives me the degree symbol. So I'm going to add C there. And I'm going to look for a little thermometer of some sort for my temperature reading. Again, I don't know my multiplier yet, so I'm going to leave that at 1 for now, but I'll adjust it as I see the values coming through. And I want to see 2 decimal points. And again, I also want to get it reasonably accurate, but not too crazy, because I'm not too worried about the temperature. So I'm going to set that data rate at 10 minutes, just to poll every now and then. Okay. Now for my actual register, I see that it's obviously reading me in hexadecimal it's 190, but in decimal it's 400. So I'm going to now go back into here and put my register as 400. Okay, again I know it's 0x3, and this time I know it's a signed 16-bit value. We don't need any of these things in the bottom here, and I'll click save, and this will add my new group. But now we'll see that obviously this has added my new group somewhere else, and the way it works is that this is running in alphabetical order, so that group will appear now on the bottom. Okay, I'm going to add a second temperature probe now, and this is going to be temperature 2. And now my group name, I'm just going to clear that and type in temperature or temps as I had previously, so that it'll add it to the same group. Okay, again, I'm going to add my degree C. I'm going to choose a thermometer because I want to see that, and I want 2 decimal points, and we said 10 minutes again. And now I can go back into my document here, and I can see that cool, this is actually nice, so it's 1 after that, so it's 401 is my Modbus register. And again, we've set it as a holding register, signed 16-bit, and I'm going to click save. And now we will see we've now got 2 temps into the same grouping there. Okay. Right, so that's pretty much that. We can then go through the rest of these. We can add them obviously to the next set, but obviously it's nice and simple to add. We will just keep adding as many registers as we need, obviously up to the limit of 32 on the standard licensing, and obviously we can add more if we need to with additional license fees. Perfect. So last thing I want to show you now is that, say I also have a control button. So you'll see here I've got a pump run stop feature that I've added, and this is actually an output from my PLC. So I've labeled this as a read and a write register. So I'm actually going to add this as a button to start my pump when I press it. Okay, so I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go edit controls. Here's an example button control. I'm just going to edit that and disable this button because I don't want to use that one. And I'm going to add a fresh button for myself now. And what we're going to do is we're going to say pump on. And I'm going to say, you'll see we just go through the same setup here. So this description is a tooltip. If I hold over it, so this will turn the pump on. Okay, and some confirmation text. Are you sure you want to turn the pump on? Right. The nice little question mark there. And this will come up when you push the button, that it'll confirm that you are making the right decision and don't just accidentally push it. Okay. Then for some of those sites, we do have a password protection option that you can password protect the button, that only after you've put in the password can you turn it on. And we're obviously going to use that for certain applications. But in this application, we're not going to, so I'm going to leave that blank, and that'll mean it won't do it right. So now I've added an icon, which is the play button. And now I've got a register and a data value as well as a primary color. So I can choose what color I want this button. I'm going to just leave it as primary. And I can go back to my Excel and I can see that my register is decimal 601. All right. And what this means now is what data value is that when I push this button, it is going to write this data value to this register. Okay. So I know to make this go high, I need to write a 1 to it. All right. And I know that in this side now, this is a coil that I need to write to. So I will then just add this button as a coil, and now I'll see pump on. Okay, I see that I didn't enable this now, so I'm going to jump back in there and click save on the enable. Okay, then now obviously I want to pump off. I want another button, and I'm going to just type this quickly here for us. Okay. Again, I'm not going to choose that, and I'm going to choose a little stop sign here. Let's do that, and I'm going to make this one a little red one, and I know it's still the same register to turn the pump off, so it's 601, and I'm going to write a 0 to this coil now to turn the pump off. Okay, now when I add that, again, I didn't enable it. Right, I've now got my pump on and pump off buttons. And these will be for any of those kind of applications. If I wanted to say add a set point or something like that, that's a variable button, I would then choose a prompt, right? And then I can give this a name, and when it prompts me, I can then choose what value to write into that register. All right, so that's now the difference. So if I wanted to add that same pump on button with a prompt, I could have it prompt me, and then I can write 1 to it or write 0 to it to turn it on or off. Okay, but we're not going to deal with that now. I'll then close that. And again, we've added all the things we wanted to add. And I'll now close the edit mode, and the system will then start polling the information. Okay, so we can see on the top right, we've got our pump on and pump offs. If I push them, you'll see my confirmation text here. And you'll see these registers will start populating if the device is connected correctly, these registers will poll and show some values. All right, you'll see register 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 obviously still showing here. Let's just give this a refresh, and now we can get some values here. Obviously this is reading a very high value now. I can go and adjust that multiplier. These are reading zeros, so maybe my temperature probes are not plugged in. But if I say I wanted to disable these other registers, I can just go in here, click on the edit function here, and actually just disable that register, and it'll remove it from the list. All right. So that is obviously how to enable and disable the registers. Add your own registers. And we can go through this whole process to remove all of these registers that we don't want to see. All right. Perfect. We can see that these are now going into error. I'm going to give this whole page a refresh now just to make sure we're all happy. And this will start bringing through some values through to the system. And we can then adjust the multipliers and adjust the units and everything we need to do to obviously bring this. This is now, let's say, in millivolts. So I know it's 11.9 volts. I want to now adjust the supply voltage to 11.9. I'm going to make it 0.001. And if I click save here, that should then adjust my supply voltage. And hopefully we've got the multiplier correct this time. And we've now got 11.92 volts. Okay. So that is how the adding your own registers works. And if I go onto the historical page now, you'll see the diagnostics and the group information is all here as well. And that's obviously how we add the data to the system. Okay. So I hope that, guys, that was informative. I hope that really gets you up to speed with adding your own registers. And yeah, please feel free to read through our wiki and reach out if you need any more assistance. Thanks, and have a good evening.